Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Escape Velocity. I am chatting with Romy today. We are going to really go straight to the source of truth on what Gen Z is really thinking about, what they like, what they don't like, at least from Romy's perspective today, and try to get a little bit of a better insight about how this generation thinks, what matters to them, and in particular, how they are evaluating their choices when they're looking at college. So, welcome, Romy. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, of course.
Um, why don't you just, full disclosure, you're my niece, so you were easy access. But why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Okay. I'm a current high school junior. I play soccer and I run track. And I think, like, in school, some of my interests are more like English, history, humanities, which I think is just like a little bit niche, maybe about my college process, is I want to like pursue like the historical education a little bit more than maybe like science or business economics or anything like that. I do some volunteering around the town. I'm in like a community service program that goes to different middle schools and educates them on like drugs and alcohol and just different things like that. And yeah.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you again. And I'm just going to pepper you with questions. So brace yourself. Let's start off with a couple rapid fire. Just tell me either or when you're thinking about schools and researching them.
Mhm.
Um, dorm tour on TikTok or campus visit in real life?
I think it depends. It depends on the location, I guess. I think some campuses are hard to get to, but I also think that social media can definitely like glamorize or like have the opposite effect on some schools. I know definitely like if I'm thinking about a school, I will search it up on TikTok or something and like see what people are posting about it, see if they like romanticize the campus and stuff. But I think being in person is really important too because like getting that like real view is
Yeah.
so.
So for you, rankings or real talk?
It's hard because high school everyone is so like set on like percentages like, oh, this school has this acceptance rate, this school has this acceptance rate, this school is ranked at this level. But I think there's also like the certain level of, yeah, this school is ranked at this mark, but like what I've heard or what I know people who go there are like, oh, like the all the money goes to the grad students or like the facilities are poor or things like that. So I think maybe more like my major wise or what I'm interested wise, I think I care about rankings a little bit more and like how it's ranked in terms of that. But I also think like word of mouth is pretty important on what people are saying about the school.
Awesome. Um, common app essay or video application?
Definitely common app essay. I didn't actually know video application was even an option. I've never heard of that or I don't know anyone who's done that. I know you can like submit supplemental things like for music. I was looking into like maybe submitting like a video of me playing like the trumpet to some schools, but I didn't know you could like submit a video. I've definitely only heard of people doing the essay.
Academic rigor or life balance?
Both. And that's like a big ask because obviously like there's going to be some more than others, but I definitely think academic rigor is just really important to me personally, but I also know that I worked like hard in high school and I kind of want to like be able to live more of a life on top of gaining a good education in college. But yeah, I think I want like a well-rounded education though too. So if I had to choose, I would definitely pick like good education over like life balance.
Cool. Let's see. You in particular are looking for more of a big urban campus than a small rural setting. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would say overall I like the bigger campus vibe. I like the community it brings more, like how like everyone seems more like centered around the school, as where the small schools they still have a community, but it just seems a little bit more like tight knit and maybe not as like expansive. But I think it also just depends on the school. Like there have been some small schools that I go to and I'm like, this is so nice and like seems I would like going here too. I think it's like not a deal breaker, but I definitely do tend to lean towards the bigger schools.
Yeah. All right. When you first are interested and curious about a college, what did you do? I mean, I know you've already kind of, you've been well underway in your search. You spent a good amount of your junior year looking at schools, visiting schools. But if some school gets on your radar, what do you do first?
Um, I think well, first thing I do is kind of ask around about it. Like if I'm thinking about a school, I'll like talk to my friends, be like, has anyone heard of this school? Or like talk to maybe like some of the seniors at my school that I'm friends with. Like I ask them like, oh, did you apply here? Like, what have you heard about this school? And then I think I just my next step is honestly I hear about a school and the first thing I do is I Google their acceptance rate because I think that and I think like that a lot of people do that. Like I think that's a pretty common thing. Like the first thing people do is just Google like their acceptance rate because I think that's like a not totally accurate, but like sometimes good measure of like the rigor of the school or at least in the application process. Um, and then from there, if I like still really like it, I'll look on their website and see if they have like virtual tours. I've done like a few of those on Zoom and stuff. And then yeah, and then I go from there. I look it up on like social media and stuff like that.
So you're looking for a certain kind of competitive school. You're looking for it to be, a tougher school to get into, but not impossible, I would imagine.
Yeah, I also think like looking up like the acceptance rate is more just like a immediate like could I get in here or like especially if I'm starting to like the school, I think it's like just something like everyone does. Our school has like a link to like a website. I can't remember the name of it, but it shows you like the school's acceptance rate and then like their average like SAT scores and like kind of where your like range of like GPA needs to be to like fall into like their middle like 50 percentile and stuff like that.
All right. So once you determine that it's a school you could get into, and you might go to the website and see if there's a virtual tour. I'm curious if there have been any schools that just like got on your radar because they sent you something cool or they caught your attention and maybe you hadn't heard about them from your friends, your guidance counselor, or anything like that. Do you remember any schools doing anything like that?
Yeah, there's two examples that I can think of for that. One is Vanderbilt. I got like a letter in the mail from them, like just like one of those little postcards that are like, "Hello, Romy." Like they're like, so it's like, oh, it's personalized. Um, and then I like from there was like a scan. I think there was like a scan QR code or something of that manner, like saying like take our virtual tour. And I was like, oh, like I kind of didn't even know virtual tours were a thing because I've only ever been in person before that. So I was like, okay, I'll try a virtual tour. So then I just like did the virtual tour and I was like, oh, this school seems so nice. And then I started asking people about it. And like, I know a girl who's going there now. But I think that was one that like I just didn't really know about until like I started like looking it up. And another school, this is like kind of a different situation, but St. Lawrence was at my school's club fair, and I like went up to the guy and I was like, okay, if I'm being honest, like I've never heard of this school before. I know nothing about it, but I just want like just give me your pitch. Like, what do you like about this school? And he was in love with the school. Like you could just tell he had just graduated. He was like this was like his first year out of the school, and so he was like raving about it and just telling me about all the fun things, and I was like, I've never heard of the school in my life, and like now I want to go here with you. Like it seems so fun.
That's awesome. So the enthusiasm and it sounds like the personalization and kind of the quick and easy access to check out something that you weren't really aware of with Vanderbilt got your attention.
Yeah, totally. I think the enthusiasm is so important. Like when I see people who are excited to like are excited to tell you about the school, I think that's just so awesome. Like I don't know if I should like name drop the school, but um I went on a tour with like my friend's older sister went to this school and I like toured the school and then I met up with my friend's older sister and her friends were like, "Yeah, you can go here if you want, but like we don't really know like if you really like the school, but like sometimes we don't like it." And I was like, okay, so this one is off my list. Because I just think like I love when people themselves are in love with the school and like when the like presenters or anything is talking about it and they're just raving about the school just out of like pure like love for the community. I think that's so awesome.
Yeah. Well, how important is community to you and feeling like you're part of a community wherever you go?
I think okay, so at like the camp I work at, it's a Quaker camp, right? And so they follow like the spices, which is like simplicity, peace, community, equality, stewardship, and integrity or whatever. And I always like talked about community being my favorite one because I just think like having a sense of community wherever you go is so important. Like I feel like I have a really good one in the school I'm like at my high school now. And I just think like building and growing that community is like probably one of the most important aspects of college too. I think like the connections you make and like the opportunities you're given because of like this like centered group of people all with like the common goal to just help you succeed is like what I'm definitely most like forward and looking for at a school.
How much do you think about the job you're going to get, how this is going to shape your future in terms of your career possibilities or even direction? How much is that on your mind?
Honestly, I think that my goal right now is just to get into a school that I know like has the repertoire or like has the capability to push me into a career I want to do. I wouldn't say I'm like super concerned about the career itself because I also like I know I want to go to potentially like maybe law school after college, so I think like that's a pretty like direct track. But I think definitely it's a thought for sure, and I think that's another thing about maybe like those bigger schools is like I know they have a wider network of like opportunity post grad. So I think it's like definitely something on the back of my mind, but I'm also I think right now I'm focused on just getting into the school and like gaining the education first.
Right. Um, I think one of the things that's freaking out a lot of schools right now is that they realize that the way we search for information and find information is changing so much with ChatGPT and AI and all of these third-party platforms that are kind of serving you up like what might be a good fit. So it's a lot harder for them to connect or know if you're even going to their website.
Yeah.
Um, have you ever used ChatGPT to help you with your college search?
No, but I definitely think I'm not as avid of a ChatGPT user as a lot of people I know. Me personally, I haven't, but like I a lot of people I know have, or just because it's such like a quick and easy way. It's like a almost like those Google summaries that like I've started getting at the top of like the Google search that like kind of give you like what you want immediately. I that must be like another AI thing. I don't know, like Apple Meta or something, but I think it's just like everything like that. It just gives you the information so quickly, and I think like a lot of people use ChatGPT as that way to just like get information immediately.
Yeah, get answers to their questions. No fluff.
Yeah.
Um, how much do you feel like a lot of what you get is like marketing speak, and it's just like, how do you react to that?
The most like marketing heavy things that I get are like those like summer program things, which I like those when I get them, it kind of makes me like angry at the school because it's like they're trying to make me pay like $10,000 to like do like a summer program. And I think those always kind of like throw me off a little bit in terms of like their like the marketing scheme almost.
Yeah.
Um, and I think like some of the like papers I get, like the school High Point has sent me maybe like 30 different like brochures like in the span of like a month, being like come get a tour, they text me, which in fairness I visited the guy at the club fair and I guess he got my information from there, but I think that's just like a little bit too much of like a push almost to like of marketing. I don't know. Like I don't know. I think the club fair is definitely like the only time where I was like, this isn't a marketing scheme. Like but it's also because it's so face to face and personal. I think like the big thing is like just getting those like randomized like letters in the mail as opposed to like talking to someone from the school.
Yeah, you get a lot of stuff in the mail. How much does it all blend together?
A lot. I keep everything I get in the mail just because I think it's fun. I have like a huge folder of like every like item of mail I've gotten from a college. Um, but it's definitely all the same. Like it feels no different. I'm getting ones from colleges and like I don't even know. I probably got like 5 yesterday and I can't even tell you the names of the schools because they all look the same.
Have you gotten anything that really stood out to you besides the Vanderbilt personalized postcard with the QR code for the virtual tour?
Yeah, I don't I don't really think so. I think like sometimes I'll get a piece of mail from a school I was already interested in and I'll be like, "Oh, like that's awesome." Like they're I don't know, like I got mail from them and I want to go there. Like that's cool. And I think sometimes I'll get mail. I'll always like search up the college after I get the mail. But again, like I get like a piece of mail and it's like has a college's name and I just search up the college's name, acceptance rate, and then I like ask my parents like what they have heard about the school or anything, what they think about it. And then it kind of goes in, like the yes or no pile. Or like I think about it more, I don't.
How much do you and your friends kind of talk about the financial aspect of college? Just because it's like so expensive, and are people freaked out about, spending that much money or taking out loans or kind of,
Yeah, we talk about it a decent amount. Like it's definitely a topic of conversation. Like sometimes it'll just be like kind of like silly things. Like they'll just be like, sorry, like how I don't know how I'm gonna pay for college or like can't like buy this boba tea, like I have to save for college or stuff like that. And also like obviously Princeton is like a pretty like nice town, so it's like a lot of the kids here like have college covered for them, which is really nice. But I think it's definitely like a topic of conversation. Me and my friends actually sometimes it becomes like a fight, which might be bad, but like some people just don't really like understand like that it can be hard for others to pay for college, and then like some of my friends are kind of just like not sure. But it's definitely something that a lot of people think about. A few of my friends too are like not citizens of the US, or like they have a dual citizenship or stuff like that, and so they're talking about like how they kind of rather go to like their country to get a college education because it's so much cheaper, and
yeah.
like, how their parents are kind of pushing for them to do that.
Is it a topic of discussion at all with you and your friends about how the current administration in this country is going after higher education? And
Yeah, me and my friends were talking about this today actually. um we were like, okay, yeah, so we were at a pool at it. We like had a free class, so we went to my friend's pool, and we were actually talking about this because we were talking about like the whole like Harvard situation and how they like took their like international students visas, and we were just talking about like how like crazy. Honestly, it became a debate because one of my friends was like, well, she thought it was kind of like selfish of Harvard to like not not agree like Columbia did, because in that way like then all the international students suffered because like Harvard didn't agree. But then we like talked about the fact that like but the freedom of like education and like no limit on education is like more important than um like I don't know, complying to like these new like rulings. But yeah, it's we talk about it all the time. We actually had like a friendly fire about it today.
that's great. I love hearing that. Uh, I mean, obviously, a lot of what's happening right now is a lot of backlash on DEI initiatives, right? And really wanting to do away with that, and doing away with it. How do you guys talk about that at all?
Yeah, I we do, but I think like just in our like immediate circle of life, like currently, it's the like initiative to like remove it hasn't I haven't seen like really any of the effects of it. Like when I'm like filling out the application to like sign up for the SAT, it still asks me like my like race and like all these questions, and obviously I don't really know what like DEI protocols like limit as far as like those questions, but like applying for like peer group, it was like what's a time that like I forget the exact question, but it was something about like race. Like it was like a DEI kind of like form question. And so like me and my friends were like we talk about it, but it hasn't really affected us like personally, I would say. Especially too because we're not in like the job world yet. And so I think that's like where it comes into like play more, I guess.
That's great. All right, we touched on TikTok. I know you're a big TikTok fan because I was with you and your sister when TikTok was about to maybe go away and then came back. Do you find TikTok to be a more interesting place to explore when you're looking for kind of like what students are posting, or is it Instagram, or is it both?
Um, I would say I definitely look at TikTok if I want to see like videos of like people's dorms and stuff. Like I think TikTok is just more videos. Instagram you like can't search up really specific stuff, but TikTok like you can actually search up specific stuff and it'll like give you exactly what you're looking for. But then on Instagram I follow more of like the college's like official accounts. Like I follow like some of the schools I really like I follow their girls soccer teams, or like I follow like their like just emissions like page, I guess. Um, and that's more like official information. If I want like day in my life at so and so school, I'll like search it up on TikTok and be like dorms or stuff like that.
What do you think that colleges are just missing the boat on? Like, what are they not doing that you and all your friends are wanting more of? Is there, besides kind of like all the sameness, the
Yeah.
the blanding of them all together?
Hmm. I feel like what everyone just wants to see more of is like connection. Like I think like this kind of goes with the blandness, but like I'm seeing all these like staged photos of like students like laughing in a courtyard, like, and they're all like different like people. Like they just it's so like clearly like staged and like artificial, and it kind of makes you just feel like you're not really like seeing. Oh, hello.
Your counseling for today.
Oh, LSU.
Hey, all right.
um but it kind of makes me feel like maybe some of it is like artificial, and so I think like it just needs more like organic like media or organic like ads. I don't know, I just think a lot of it seems like fake or forced.
Do you feel like you wish you were hearing more straight from students? Like it's a selfie and then a quote about like their favorite place to study on campus or their favorite class or something funny or their favorite club. Like, do you wish it was more straight from them and less through the gloss of, you know?
Yeah, I definitely think that would be helpful because like I don't know, you're reading all those like brochures that they give you kind of maybe at like a an info session before a tour and stuff, and you're like reading about all the statistics, and obviously those are important and like I want to read those, but I also want to like find out like what, yeah, like what's their favorite coffee shop, like what's like what do they like to do in their free time. And like that's what was so fun about like getting to visit like my sister like Claire at her school, is because I got to like talk to all of her friends and like find out what they like to do and like what they like do for fun or where they go to study, like what's their favorite study spot on campus, and that's just like fun and like personalized. I don't know, and like it makes me feel like okay, when I go here I could like find my favorites and like find what I like.
Right. Now, Claire is at William and Mary,
Hmm.
and you visited there and obviously had that experience, but that's not where you hope to go as well. I mean, and of course, obviously, like, I get that on the family relation level of like going where your sister goes. But were you able to get that kind of experience when you visited the schools that are at the top of your list and kind of like in that, or was it just a general tour kind of experience?
I mean, yeah, I it was just a general tour for most of them. Like I said, like if I knew someone who went there and I was like good friends with them, I would reach out and like they would show me their dorm or stuff like that. But for most of the other schools I like saw, it was kind of just a general tour. But the thing is like I feel like your tour guide is almost like what my sister like could have been for me. Like some of the schools I really liked, like it was like partly because of how good the tour guide was. Like because if your tour guide is like telling you about what they love about the school, then it just feels the same. Like it's so like personalized. Like my tour guide at UVA was so good. Like he was so well spoken and just so clearly like loved the school and like loved to be a part of it. And I think that like just made me like the school more because of like how much he loved it.
Yeah. So if you were looking at a school that you really liked and you met someone like an admissions counselor or a student there who was like, working for admissions, and would you want to be able to like text students or like text directly to like another, like a player on the soccer team or like ask questions directly to students who are there? Is that something that you would do, or would you be like, oh, I'm not texting this stranger?
Um, I think that maybe if it was a school, I feel like that would be more something that I would be interested in, like after I like got into the school, maybe because like then I think I would have more like specified questions, like knowing that I was like going there. But I think like in the like application, there's like 20 different schools that I like I and I think that would be overwhelming to like try and text everyone about it. But I think an admissions officer is a little bit different because I think that's like the most important part to me right now is like what can I do to like get in, you know what I mean? Like it's like less about like I need to know everything about the school, but like it would be fun to text someone to be like, "Oh, what have you seen that like you liked on these applications?" Or like obviously I don't know if they can answer that, but
Do have any schools shared like, hey, here's like our favorite essay of last year, or here are some standouts, from the past that.
On social media, some people post like they're like, I got into Harvard, Princeton, and Yale. Here's my Common App essay, and then they'll like post it. And so like I'm always reading those and like seeing what they did. Um, but I think not really. Again, at the club fair, someone and I thought this was bold. Honestly, I was like kind of like towing the line of like, should you like ask straight up like, what do I need to do to get in here? Because I didn't know if that was rude or I don't know. But like some of my friends were way more bold and would just go up and be like, okay, so like the application process, and they would ask, and the person was always really like receptive in their answer, and I like learned some good information about like what they want to see. Um, and I know too, I was like interested in like test policies specifically at Yale. And me and my mom found like this podcast that we like listened to for a while about like their different like forms of testing, like their test flexibility and like what you should submit, what you shouldn't submit. And I thought that was really helpful too. And it's just two people, like admissions officers, just talking about like what they thought and like what they see.
It's going to be really interesting once you go through the process and find out where where you can go, and then how you're going to make your decision.
Hmm.
We'll have to have another conversation when you're in the midst of that.
Yeah,
Find
yeah.
out how stressed out you are. How stressful is it in general, just this whole process?
I think it is so stressful. If I'm being honest, like, and I think that is definitely also a shared experience among my friends. Like we sometimes will like go to lunch and someone will bring up college and we'll be like, okay, this conversation has to change. Like this is we can't talk about this anymore. And I think that's also because it's like our junior year, so everything we do feels like it has a lot more weight, like with like testing like APs and like your grades and stuff. So all that just feels like so accumulative this year almost. Um, and so I think like it's definitely very stressful, especially because I know like application rates like have been rising. I don't know if it's my year that it's like the highest or it's last year was the highest, but I know like there was like a large amount of like kids my year applying to college, like larger than ever before.
Yeah, it's got to be so stressful. Do you feel like any schools are extra helpful in acknowledging that stress? Is that something you wish they kind of acknowledged a little bit more from your perspective?
Honestly, yeah. So I did this like or not admitted. I did this like alumni students day where like at my parents' school Lafayette. And I went and they like had us read these mock applications and we like decided who got in, who got like deferred, and who got rejected or something.
Wow.
Um, and like going through that process, honestly, I think it helped me because like obviously like I was still like rejecting people, but I think like you could also see like the logic behind it of like yeah, like this person got like a B their freshman year, but like they've shown a lot of like gradual growth and improvement, and I think like that is like a little bit comforting to know that like they understand that like you're human. And I think like I didn't really think that before. I was kind of like imagining like these admissions people were just kind of like robots, like assuming that you had to be perfect. And I think another thing is I kind of get annoyed when schools like don't really recognize their own competitiveness, which maybe this is just a me thing, but like when I'm like listening to these schools like talk about like, oh yeah, like just apply like and I know their acceptance rate is like 5%. I'm like, okay, but like it's not like me applying is the issue. It's like I know like maybe like my stats aren't like good enough to get in. So I think like that in that way they're almost like discrediting the stress I feel because they're like, "Oh yeah, just apply like come to this school." And I'm like, "Okay, but would you take me?" Like
Right. right. So that's interesting. That's got to be so hard. It's been a while since I experienced all of that. Um, do you feel like the process that you're having to go through is, eh, are there some schools that have made it easier or seem less daunting and more, I don't know, like, are you like, well, they're really making it like I understand they're communicating with me in a way that I like, and they wouldn't necessarily have been on my list, but I know it's going to be like low stress to apply. I really like the school. And so maybe it's not even a safety school, maybe it's just an outlier, but you're like, yeah, I'm probably going to apply there because they've just really made it clear and made me feel welcome and I'm not stressed about it.
Yeah, I have a few schools that I like are on my list right now that I think are pretty like outliers compared to like the main ones that I like. Um and I think that's more just because I like the school. I wouldn't say the application process seems any less stressful because it's like all through like the common application. So it's like the same essay kind of goes to everyone. I know a few schools have like exceptions and like I think that would probably make me like less inclined to apply to them. But like for the most part, I think about like the application stress when it comes to a school, but like there are definitely some that have just like seemed more welcoming in general that have kind of made me like want to apply there.
Let me think here. I want to make sure I get to some of my other questions. I mean, is there anything that you just want to share about your process, the search, how it's felt that you think more people should know about, especially people who are in charge of, trying to get their schools on the radars of the right kids and encourage them to apply and hopefully be a good place for them.
Yeah, I think it's just like remembering that it's like overwhelming almost. I think and just like differentiating themselves. Like I look at all these websites and like all these different schools like platforms and stuff and it all feels so similar to me and I think that's what really puts it up to like the stats and like the location of the school because at a certain point I'm just like all these schools like feel the same so it's like what makes them special like the student life and that's why I think like seeing like more of like the students situations is so important and like I don't know they're yeah, I don't know. I just think like seeing the school like from like a insider perspective is important.
Yeah. If there were like virtual tours that were like ride-alongs, would that, like where you were like, yeah, kind of like POV of, the first 10 minutes of my, rolling into my chemistry class with my friends or something like that. Is that something
Yeah,
that would be interesting?
that would be so cool. I totally think that would be interesting.
Do you think that schools do they come across as trying to hide something with all that sameness and all the drone video footage of the beautiful buildings and
Yeah,
all the diverse group of students reading together under a tree?
yeah, exactly. I wouldn't say it seems like they're trying to hide something, but it just seems so like impersonal and just staged. Like that's just what I think when I see this. I'm like, this tells me nothing about the school. You know what I mean? Like if anything, this is like taking away from like my perception of the school itself.
Well, let me ask you this too. So you're a Gen Z, right? Do you identify with that? Like, is that something that you and your friends are like, oh yeah, we're so Gen Z?
No, but I think because like I think that would be seen as like a little like cringe or like seen as like yeah no, but like obviously that's like my generation, but I don't think people are like thinking like oh my gosh like we're so Gen Z. I think it's just like
It's just who
we're
you are.
yeah
Yeah.
just the younger generation I guess.
Well, people often say that the younger generation, that you all don't like to read a lot of text. If you see a lot of text, 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 that it's kind of a turnoff, and that you're really, you've grown up with phones and
Yeah.
scrolling and scanning stuff. Talk to me about how and when you do actually spend time reading longer form content?
In my English class, I think is when
Well,
I'm
you have
forced to read longer content. Um, yeah, I think if I'm looking for something like really specific, like someone's name at a college, like a professor's name or something like that, and like I'll just end up reading through, or like I want to know. It's just when I want to know something specific and like it's in text form. I think I wouldn't like read a whole synopsis about a school, but I would like read if I was like trying to figure out like how to like apply to their dual enrollment. Like I would read this whole thing, or like if I had to do anything like that in terms of like college. But I definitely think it's true. Like I so many of my friends, like I've just seen how like short their attention spans are, and I know like that's like I don't know. I don't want to like hate on like my friends, obviously, or like everyone around me, because the same is with me. Like I'm sure my attention span is like so much shorter than it used to be, just because of like the constant like scrolling and like the dopamine from all those like tiny like 2-second videos. But I think like that's definitely like a factor in like people's ability to like look on a website and like read.
Right, right. Are you ever going to a website and like going through all the pages of all the content and reading everything?
Um, no, I would never read everything on the website. Like I just think that's like yeah, no, I wouldn't honestly. If I would only really do that if I was looking for something in particular, but I'd never just like out of curiosity like go and read the whole website. I would just like ask around or like look it up on my phone, like Google search it.
All right. Well, anything else that you want to give me feedback on, or I mean, we're trying to make this a better place out there on the web and social media, and tell the truth, and make connections with people for these places that are going to have a huge impact on their lives, and so
Yeah.
it's really important.
I think just like honesty is something that I feel like I see a lack of in this process. Like there are some schools that are like test test optional, but then it's like kind of like known by everyone that they're like test preferred, or like just certain things like that. Like I wish there was more like transparency and honesty in that like respect, especially when like applying. Like okay, like the transparency you need like to be like taking these classes, or like obviously you're like gonna be rejected from here, or like you really seriously should get up your SAT score and think about submitting it to this school even though you don't have to. Just
Yeah.
things like that.
Well, Romy, thank you so much for sharing your perspective on all of this.
Yes.
And I wish you the best of luck on your application process. And I hope you get into all your top choices and have a really hard time making a final decision.
Thanks.
All right.